Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Have you ever looked at an old, dirty Washington quarter? The kind that's been sitting in your pocket change for decades and thought, it's just a regular coin. Well, think again, because some of those worn out, grimy quarters could secretly be worth a small fortune. Not hundreds, not thousands, but tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars hiding in plain sight. Now, let's kick things off with the coin that shouldn't even exist, the mysterious 1978 silver Washington quarter. At first glance, this one looks like any old, dirty quarter that's been through decades of pockets, soda machines, and change jars. The surface is dull, scratched, and worn, the kind of coin most people wouldn't even give a second look. But what if I told you this particular quarter wasn't made of the normal copper-nickel blend used in 1978? What if it was struck on a silver planchet by mistake? Here's where it gets wild. By 1978, the US Mint had stopped using silver for quarters for over a decade. Every quarter from 1965 onward was supposed to be copper-nickel clad, no exceptions. But through a minting fluke, a small number of leftover 40% silver planchets from the 1976 bicentennial era are believed to have accidentally found their way into the presses, and a few of them were struck with 1978 dies, producing one of the most mind-blowing mint errors in modern coinage. Collectors call these coins silver transition errors, and they're almost mythical in the hobby. The easiest way to spot one? That unique silvery white edge, instead of the usual copper streak you see on a normal quarter. The sound is different too, a high-pitched ring instead of a dull clink when dropped. And if you weigh it, a real silver 1978 quarter comes in around 5.75 grams, heavier than the standard 5.67 grams of the copper-nickel version. Now, this particular coin we're looking at is in bad condition, scratched, dirty, and well circulated. But even so, that doesn't mean it's worthless. If it's confirmed to be a genuine silver transitional strike, it could still sell for over $25,000 in its current worn state. But here's the real shocker: if you somehow find one in uncirculated or mint state condition, authenticated by PCGs or NGC, the value skyrockets into the six figures. That's right, a verified 1978 silver quarter can fetch upwards of $450,000 or more, depending on the grade and proof of origin. Imagine that: a dirty old quarter you almost spent at the gas station, turning out to be worth more than a brand new luxury car. It's the kind of discovery that makes collectors' hearts race, because this is one of those coins that shouldn't exist, but somehow miraculously does. So next time you're sorting through your change, take a close look at those old, grimy 1970 quarters. Flip them on their edge, weigh them, and listen carefully. That simple ring test could reveal a hidden treasure, a forgotten piece of minting history that slipped through the cracks over 4 decades ago. Next up, we've got a coin that's been hiding right under everyone's nose, the 1995p Washington quarter. Now, at first glance, this coin doesn't look like anything special. It's from the 90s modern, common, may worth 25 cents if you're lucky. But what if I told you that some 1995p quarters, even in fine condition, have turned out to be worth thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars? Let's start with a bit of history. The 1995p was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and that year, the mint was running at full speed, churning out over 1.1 billion quarters. That kind of volume means one thing: mistakes happen. And when they do, collectors go wild. Among the 1995p quarters, there are reports of several jaw-dropping double die obverse errors coins where the design was struck twice slightly out of alignment. Under magnification, you can actually see the doubling on George Washington's eye, mouth, and even on the word liberty. It's a striking, almost eerie effect, like Washington's face is slightly ghosted, a duplicate image frozen into metal. These double die quarters are so rare that very few have ever been confirmed. But when one does show up, the value explodes. Even in fine circulated condition, like this coin here, it could bring $2,000 to $5,000 from a serious collector who understands what they're looking at. But that's just the start. If your coin happens to show strong, Clear doubling, especially on the motto, "In God We Trust," that value climbs fast. Certified mint state examples of the 1995P double die have been known to sell for $35,000, $75,000, even $150,000 or more, depending on the clarity of the error and the preservation of the coin. And then there's the truly shocking part: a few mysterious 1995P quarters struck on experimental planchets, believed to be leftover from testing for the upcoming 50-state quarters program. These ultra-rare test strikes have unique colors and surfaces darker or duller than normal clad quarters, and they can reach values of $300,000 to $450,000. If authenticated. So imagine this. A coin that most people drop in a vending machine or toss in a jar could secretly be worth more than a new house. The trick is knowing what to look for. Always check that mint mark, that little P on the front, and inspect Washington's profile carefully. Look for that subtle doubling, and listen for that slightly higher pitched ring that can hint at a different metal composition. Your old pocket change could hold one of these minting miracles, the kind that slipped through the system unnoticed, waiting decades for someone sharp-eyed enough to find them. So before you spend your next handful of quarters, take a close look. You never know when that ordinary-looking 1995P might just turn out to be a $400,000 jackpot hiding in plain sight. Moving on, let's talk about a coin that almost nobody pays attention to: the 1991D Washington quarter. It's scratched, dull, and beat up. The kind of coin you might find stuck at the bottom of an old coffee can. But don't let that rough condition fool you, because what's hiding beneath that worn surface could be one of the most mysterious mint errors of the entire decade. Now, 1991 quarters were struck at the Denver Mint, identified by that little D mint mark right beside Washington's ponytail. Over 630 million were made, a massive number. So how could any of these possibly be rare? The answer lies in the handful of minting mistakes that slipped through that year. And when they do, their values can reach mind-blowing heights. Let's start with the strange one: the off-center strike errors. Some 1991D quarters were struck slightly misaligned, where Washington's portrait sits noticeably off to one side, sometimes cutting into the edge lettering. These off-center pieces are rare, but when the design is 50% off, and both date and mint mark are visible, you're looking at a coin worth anywhere from $1,500 to $15,000, even in rough, circulated shape. But that's not all. Collectors have also found 1991D quarters struck on experimental planchets, blanks meant for other coins. Some were made from the wrong metal, others from foreign coin stock the mint was testing during that period. These oddities give the coins a completely different tone, sometimes a darker gray, sometimes a golden tint. And if authenticated, one of those experimental planchet errors can sell for over $125,000 to $250,000, depending on weight and metal composition. And then there's the holy grail of 1991D quarters: the missing clad layer error. These are absolutely stunning in person. Instead of that familiar silver shine, half the coin appears a deep coppery red because one of the nickel layers is missing. It gives the surface a wild, two-tone look, almost like it's glowing with history. Now, a missing clad layer in fine condition can bring $3,000, but a fully struck and circulated example verified by PCGs or NGC, that's a $400,000 showstopper right there. So, put this in perspective. You could be holding a dirty 1991D quarter right now, the kind you'd normally toss into a change jar without realizing that it might be worth more than a Ferrari. That's how insane these error values can get. And here's the secret to spotting one: look closely at the coin's edge. If you see only copper with no silvery nickel layer, or if the strike looks uneven or slightly off-center, you might just have a jackpot coin in your hands. Even if it's grimy, scratched, or worn down, never clean it, just get it weighed, checked, and authenticated. That old, tired coin could be your ticket to a small fortune. It's discoveries like these that remind us, the rarest treasures don't always shine the brightest. Sometimes, the ugliest, dirtiest coin in your collection is the one that turns out to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, get ready because this next coin looks more like something you'd toss in the trash than treasure. I'm talking about the 1988 Washington quarter, and this one's in rough shape, dark, grimy, and coated with that mysterious black shade that makes it look almost burnt. But don't blink, because sometimes that dull, ugly surface hides one of the most shocking minting mistakes in modern US coin history. You see, 1988 wasn't supposed to be a special year for quarters. Over 562 million were minted at Philadelphia and 596 million at Denver. Nothing about that sounds rare, right? But here's where things get strange. Some 1988 quarters were struck on experimental planchets, coins that were never meant to exist. During the late 1980s, the US Mint was secretly testing new metals and coatings for upcoming coinage, especially with the 1989 and 1990 issues on the horizon. A few of those test planchets, darker in tone and richer in copper content, somehow got mixed into regular production runs. When those coins were struck, they came out with an unusual blackish or gunmetal gray surface, almost identical to what we're seeing here. Collectors call them black shade planchets, and they're so rare that only a handful have ever been confirmed. Most ended up in circulation, worn down and overlooked. The good news, even in bad, dirty condition, a verified experimental 1988 quarter like this could easily bring $15,000 to $25,000. But here's where the shock kicks in uncirculated or high-grade condition, authenticated by PCGs or NGC. Some of these black shade, 1988 quarters have sold for more than $375,000 to $500,000. That's right, $500,000 for a coin most people wouldn't bother to pick up off the floor. And there's another rare twist. A few 1988 quarters were accidentally struck on foreign planchets, metal blanks meant for other countries' coins the US Mint was producing at the time. These coins come in slightly smaller or lighter than normal, often with a strange, darker finish that many mistake for corrosion or dirt. But if you notice that your 1988 quarter seems to weigh less than 5.67 grams, or the reeded edge looks uneven or faded, you might just be holding one of those ultra-rare foreign strikes. Those have been known to reach $200,000 or more at auction. Now, about that black tone, collectors are often fooled by environmental damage. But the true giveaway for a minting anomaly is consistency. If the coin's color is uniform, not blotchy, and it still rings sharply when tapped, that's a strong clue you could be dealing with a planchet error, not just dirt. So, before you dismiss that old, dark quarter sitting in your drawer, take a closer look. It might not just be dirty, it might be one of the Mint's best kept secrets. A coin that looks burned, beaten, and worthless could actually be a $500,000 marvel that defied every quality check the US Mint ever had. This is exactly why every coin collector knows. Never judge a coin by its color. Sometimes, that shadowy black finish is a sign of something far more valuable than silver itself. Alright, hold on to your seats because this next coin might just make you double check every quarter you've ever owned. It's the 1984D Washington quarter, and at first sight, it looks pitiful. The surface is scratched, worn, and dull. The kind of coin that's seen decades of pockets, soda machines, and coin jars. You'd probably think it's worth 25 cents, maybe less. But this beat-up coin could actually be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here's why. 1984 was a strange year at the Denver Mint. The presses were running full throttle. Over 500 million quarters were struck that year, but hidden in that ocean of ordinary coins, a few mysterious error strikes slipped through the cracks. One of the most infamous, the 1984D double die obverse. A subtle, but extremely valuable mistake. If you look closely at "In God We Trust," or at the letters in Liberty, you'll sometimes see faint doubling like a ghostly shadow behind each letter. Under magnification, it's almost hypnotic, and collectors will pay huge money for a clean example. Even a worn, no fine condition 1984D with visible doubling can bring $3,000 to $5,000. But that's just the beginning. A few 1984D quarters have turned up struck on transitional or foreign planchets, meaning the coin was accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination or even another country's coin. These mistakes produce unusual weights, sometimes lighter or heavier in different metal tones, from darker gray to bright silvery white. If authenticated, those experimental or foreign strike 1984D quarters can command between $125,000 and $250,000, depending on condition. And then there's the truly jaw-dropping variety, the 1984D partial collar and broadstrike errors. These are coins where the edge wasn't properly contained during striking, causing the rim to spread outward like a flared disc. They look distorted and uneven, often dismissed as damaged. But for collectors who know what they're seeing, those wild shapes are a golden ticket. A verified broadstrike 1984D quarter has fetched as much as $375,000 at auction. What makes these errors so desirable is simple: they shouldn't exist. The Denver Mint had some of the tightest quality control in the 80s, yet a few escaped, and those few are now legendary among collectors. So, how do you spot one? Start by checking the rim. If it's wider than normal or uneven, that's a clue. Next, hold it under a light and inspect Washington's eye and the word Liberty for doubling. And if the coin sounds off when dropped, a slightly deeper tone or heavier ring, you could be holding a piece of minting history. Even in no fine condition, these coins are treasure. The dirt, the scratches, the wear, none of that erases the fact that it's a mint error worth more than most people's yearly salary. And that's what makes coin hunting so thrilling. You never know when a simple, ugly 1984D quarter could turn out to be the kind of discovery that changes your life. Now, if you've ever come across a dull, worn, or beat-up 1982D Washington quarter, you probably didn't think twice about it. Just another quarter from the early 80s, right? Well, you might want to take a closer look, because this ordinary-looking coin from Denver hides one of the biggest surprises in U.S. coin history. 1982 was a turning point for the U.S. Mint. Inflation was high, metal prices were rising, and production costs were a nightmare. To save money, the Mint began experimenting with new metal compositions and blank planchets. And that's where the chaos began. Somewhere in that process, a few 1982D quarters were accidentally struck on the wrong metal. Or worse, the wrong blanks altogether. One of the rarest types known is the 1982D quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet, believed to be a leftover blank from pre-1965 silver coinage that somehow slipped into the presses nearly 2 decades later. These shouldn't even exist, yet a handful have been discovered. And even in bad, circulated condition, that kind of coin could fetch $15,000 to $25,000. But if you were lucky enough to find one in mint state, authenticated by PCGs or NGC, the value could soar to $450,000 or more. Now, here's where it gets even stranger. 1982 was also the year the mint stopped stamping mint marks on certain denominations due to mechanical upgrades. That led to a mix-up of dies and presses. Some quarters ended up with faint or misplaced D mint marks, and others were struck from reworked dies that caused slight doubling, most noticeably on the word Liberty and the date. Collectors call these ghost mint mark errors, and even in rough condition, one of those can sell for $5,000 to $10,000. But the wildest of them all? The 1982D transitional planchet error, where a quarter was accidentally struck on a copper alloy blank meant for the Lincoln cent. The coin comes out smaller, darker, and lighter in weight, around 3.1 grams, instead of the standard 5.67. It looks damaged to the untrained eye, but to an expert, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth up to $375,000. What makes this coin so legendary is the era it came from. The early 1980s were messy for the mint, full of shifts, tests, and human errors that slipped through unnoticed. Millions of coins were made, but just a few, maybe a dozen of these flawed 1982D quarters exist. And every single one tells a story of chance, accident, and pure minting mystery. So if you ever come across a 1982D quarter that looks off, maybe the metal tone is strange, the edge is uneven, or the D mint mark looks faded, don't ignore it. That dirty, bad condition coin might just be a six-figure gem disguised as pocket change. Remember, sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that look like they've been through it all. Dirt, wear, scratches, none of that erases history. It just hides it, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. Alright, now, let's turn our attention to a coin that most people would never give a second glance, the 1985p Washington quarter. It's worn down, no fine detail left, the kind of coin that's been sliding around in pockets and glove boxes for nearly 40 years. But believe it or not, this unimpressive little piece of metal might just be one of the most valuable quarters you could ever stumble upon. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 775 million quarters in 1985. A huge number. On paper, that makes this one of the most common coins of the decade. But here's the shocker. A few 1985p quarters have surfaced that absolutely defy explanation. Let's start with the wrong planchet strikes. In some cases, a 1985p quarter was mistakenly struck on a foreign coin blank, possibly from the Mint's overseas contracts. These planchets were slightly lighter and had different metal mixtures, and they produced quarters with strange colors, sometimes gray-blue, sometimes golden-brown. They look damaged or dirty at first, but they're actually the result of a minting error. One of these confirmed foreign planchet 1985p quarters sold for nearly $125,000, and experts believe others are still out there, hiding in circulation. But there's another twist: the double die obverse error, where the coin was struck twice, slightly out of alignment. On these, the doubling can be seen in Liberty or In God We Trust. Even though the doubling is faint, collectors will pay huge money for it. A lightly circulated example can reach $15,000 to $25,000, and a near mint version could climb as high as $350,000. And that's not the only mystery. Some 1985p quarters were struck on transitional planchets, leftover copper-nickel blanks from the late 1970s or early 1980s experiments. These coins have a different sound when dropped, a sharper, almost ringing tone compared to the usual dull clink. If your 1985p quarter rings brighter, weighs even slightly more than the standard 5.67 grams, or has a silverish edge instead of that copper core, you could be looking at a $400,000 discovery. Now, in no fine condition, like the coin we're looking at here, it might not look like much. The surfaces are worn, the details faded, the edges smooth from years of circulation. But value doesn't just come from looks. It comes from the story behind the metal, and in 1985, that story is one of confusion, mechanical glitches, and incredible minting slip-ups. Even this battered coin could still command $5,000 to $10,000 if it shows signs of a genuine minting error. Here's how to spot one. Check the edge. If you see no copper line and the color looks silvery all the way around, it's not normal. Look closely at the lettering on Liberty or Washington's eye for doubling. And most importantly, weigh it. Anything off from 5.67 grams could mean you're holding a fortune. It's almost poetic, a coin made to be ordinary, but destined to become extraordinary. The 1985p quarter is a reminder that not every treasure shines. Some are hiding beneath decades of wear, waiting for someone curious enough to see what others overlook. Now, let's talk about one of the strangest coins to ever slip out of the Denver Mint, the 1981d Washington quarter. The full black shade variety. Just one look at it, and most people would think it's been burned, damaged, or corroded. Its surface is completely dark, not silver, but deep, almost jet black. The kind of coin you'd find in a parking lot and toss aside without a second thought. But here's where things get crazy. This black-toned quarter might not be a victim of damage at all. It could be the result of one of the most mysterious and valuable minting anomalies in modern history. In 1981, the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, over 575 million to be exact. But among those millions, a few came out unlike anything seen before. Some researchers believe the black-toned quarters were struck on experimental planchets, test metals coated with the darker alloy the Mint was experimenting with for durability and cost savings. Others believe the coins were improperly annealed, meaning they were overheated during production, causing the nickel layer to oxidize and turn black. Whatever the cause, these coins have become legendary among error hunters. A true 1981D black quarter in fine condition, with even, consistent coloring across both sides, can fetch between $8,000 and $15,000, even without a mirror-like surface. That's already impressive, but authenticated high-grade examples, especially those proven to be mint errors rather than environmental damage, have sold for up to $400,000 or more. Now, here's how to tell the difference. If the black surface is uniform and smooth, with visible details underneath, that's a strong sign it's an improper annealing error. But if the surface is patchy, flaking, or uneven, that's just corrosion or toning from age. You can also check the weight. True black error quarters usually come in slightly heavier, around 5.75 grams. Since the surface oxidation adds density, collectors go wild for these because they're mysterious. No official record of them exists. No documentation from the mint explains why they happen. And yet, here they are. Every now and then, one shows up in a yard sale, a coin roll, or even a jar of change from the ATS. Shocking whoever finds it. Imagine that a blackened, dirty coin you thought was worthless suddenly turning out to be a six-figure collectible. That's not just luck. That's history coming full circle. And the best part? The 1981D black quarter isn't a one-time find. More could still be out there. Maybe in a forgotten coin jar in your kitchen. Maybe in your pocket change right now. So before you dismiss any dark, oddly colored quarters, take a second look. You could be holding one of the rarest, most valuable mint mistakes ever to leave Denver. A coin born out of error, turned into legend, and now worth a fortune.